I'm sitting here in San Rafael on Coast Miwok land, and this year the San Aloka Foundation has, begun with paying land tax, or shumi, how it's called, in one of the tribal languages here in the Bay Area. So I'm very happy that we can do that. And you might also be, looking into where you live, if that is a possibility to contribute to the tribal nations who have stewarded the land where you live on for many, many years. And in the East Bay, there is a website, it's called Shumi, and they have a Shumi calculator. And the word is SHUUMI, Shumi. And you can put in some parameter of where you live right now, and then it gives you like a fair amount, which is suggested, as a contribution. For example, for the place here where I am, it's $500 a year. So it's something is affordable, I think, for many people to pay that per year. So last time I mentioned that what we non-Indigenous people need to learn from our Indigenous relatives are not detailed, exotic, ancestral instructions, but much more than that. We need to learn a particular way of looking at who we are and where we are. It's that way of looking we need to learn. It's a quality of attention, or a quality of attuning, a quality of being in relationship with the earth as a living, intelligent being, a living, intelligent life form. And as we are kind of learning that new way of looking, we are remembering our own indigeneity in that way. Because all of us, have indigenous forebears in the distant past who, do not come from Turtle Island, but who come from Europe. And they also had, of course, indigenous practices. So to remember those, that can be kicked off, by a different way of looking. And that's exactly, what I try to share here on these Wednesday sessions. A different way of looking, supported by the Buddha's teaching on meditation and on the mind and on the heart, with some input, of indigenous wisdom lineages, in terms of in which kind of a framework to hold these very precious and timeless teachings of the Buddha. So to be in conscious relationship with the earth, with the biosphere, always needs to start with respect and valuing. And this is exactly, where we got the so-called problem, in our consumerist, capitalist culture. There's no respect for the land. There's no respect for trees and for earth. It's all seen as resources, and that's what needs to be changed, that way of looking. And it's not rocket science, because we do have indigenous peoples who have preserved this way of looking. Because, if we're coming from respect and valuing, there comes a different way of being, comes along with that. A way of being which is attuned to the limits of the natural world, and through that it brings about responsible ways of doing. So if the way of being is attuned, then the ways of doing automatically will be attuned as well. And it's a training, of course. First it's more like intellectual, and we hear it, we read it, and then slowly through practice it starts to integrate into our system, building new neural pathways. so that it can be sensed, our deep embeddedness. And, as we see, with what's happening with the current administration, this absolute desperate struggle, on holding on to the old paradigm against all odds and blaming everyone around for that, but it doesn't work. In reality, it just simply doesn't work because it's not real. It's not in attunement with the way things are. And then it leads to more and more loss of ethics in order to kind of push through something which needs to be respected. And what we see is the mess we can observe, which is, if it wouldn't be so violent and so dangerous, it would be almost kind of funny, the degree of ignorance displayed by people in such high offices. So it's simply ignorance, to try to deny the deep embeddedness, the complete and total embeddedness, which we try to become attuned to through practicing in this way, earthworm practice. And the Buddha, says very clearly that avijja, or ignorance, is the basis of suffering and the endless round of rebirth. It's avijja, not knowing, not understanding the way things are. And, in the canon, the Buddha is on record for having explained in many different ways how, ignorance displays itself in our hearts and in our minds. And one of these very many lists is what's called the 4 vipallasa. Or they have been translated, as the 4 distortions, the 4 inversions, the 4 hallucinations. And in the old translation, it was sometimes even called the 4 perversions. So they're looking at the world and looking at oneself in ways which are not in sync with reality. And the word vipallasa comes from the Pali word 3, actually consists of 3 parts, viparyasa, and that literally means turned upside down. Something is turned upside down, is turned on its head. It's completely misunderstood and leads to wrong view. And wrong view, is the entrance gate towards suffering. And I just want to very shortly, share with you those 4 vipallasa. The first one is seeing what is impermanent, anicca, as permanent. Nicca, that's the first one. The second one is seeing what is painful, dukkha, as pleasant, sukha. The third one is seeing what is without a self, anatta, as a self, atta. And the fourth one is seeing what is not beautiful, asubha, as beautiful, subha. So that's the 4 vipallasa. And, and I think if the Buddha would be alive today, he would add a 5th vipallasa. Seeing what is part of the web of life as separate from it. This has meanwhile, since the Buddha has walked the earth in Iron Age India, that has become such a huge issue because population has increased to such a degree that we have hit the limits of what the planet can support. So training oneself in this new way of looking at ourselves and at our lives does not result in an immediate resolution, of course. It's over many, many generations. And it's a practice. It's a way of life that is onward-leading, leading us in the right direction towards, liberation from suffering, and also towards, a new cultural paradigm. which needs to be built on the recognition that we are all part of a living intelligent earth, and that human supremacy is just a very immature stance of a very immature species which needs to listen to all of the other species who are here much, much longer than us, and who can teach us, and who want to teach us. And I think that's the reason, why more and more people are kind of slowly but surely tending to those practices, because somehow we feel, we can sense in a mysterious way that other species are reaching out to us, because they know that we are their youngest siblings and they want to care for us. They want to shake us out of this very immature way of looking, that it's all about us. And the Buddha's teaching is such a wonderful and powerful support for having the stability to receive these teachings from the modern human world, and to handle and deal, with all of the fallout which comes from the unfinished business, which has been, perpetrated by our forebears, and we are still living that. So this kind of waking up from one cultural paradigm into the next, that happens from time to time, and we are born at such a time. And we can be part of the immune system of the earth by making ourselves available to this teaching, which cannot be understood with the thinking mind, but needs to be received with the body. These bodies, which are built from food, drink, and oxygen and temperature, which is all provided by the biosphere. We are constantly eating, drinking, and breathing the planet. And the planet is kept going by the sun. It's a vast, vast web of life we are part of. And, to make that conscious is the entry into the new paradigm. And I have brought a poem today, to help us shift gear. It's by Anne Hillman, and it's called "We Look with Uncertainty." We look with uncertainty beyond the old choices for clear-cut answers to a softer, more permeable aliveness, which is every moment at the brink of death. For something new is being born in us, if we but let it. We stand at a new doorway, awaiting that which comes, daring to be human creatures, vulnerable to the beauty of existence, learning to love. We stand at a new doorway, awaiting that which comes, daring to be human creatures, vulnerable to the beauty of existence, learning to love. So let's settle into the meditation now. You'll find a posture which works for you for about 40 minutes, 42 minutes. And those meditations are simply geared towards what most needs to be remembered in service of future generations on this planet. Just starting with one thing. And that's what we are doing. That one thing here, what we are doing is repeatedly experiencing ourselves as part of a living, intelligent earth, and centering the earth as teacher. I see myself as a person, who sets things in place so that the earth can teach. The earth knows us, and our bodies know the earth, because our bodies are made of earth. We're called humans because we are made out of humus. And remembering that can bring the humility needed to be open and available for what the earth is teaching. Without words. So just sensing the gravity of the earth, which keeps us in place, gently pulling us towards the core of the earth, stabilizing us where we are. We call that gravity. It simply shows us to what these bodies belong. These bodies are part of a vast body. And today I want to start with a classic meditation, which is called, the 5 body parts. And in Bali called Mula Karmatana. And that literally means root basis of work. And that's the 5 meditation objects which are given during the novice ordination. The first being Kesa, hair of the head. Second one, Loma, hair of the body. Third one, Naka, nails. Danta, teeth. Tacho, skin. And we can use that now like a mantra. So I'm going to repeat. And as you hear the word, allow this body part to just arise in your heart, in your mind, as a sense experience, or maybe an image, whatever comes up. And we repeat that for a few times. It's a support system, to settle the mind, to still the mind. And you can also, use that in your own meditation, just as a mantra. Also for walking, it can be used. And it can be used like in one direction and then backwards and forwards and backwards. So the mind needs to really focus to stay with it. So, becoming aware, feeling your body from inside right now. And what you bring here. And then allowing Kesa, hair of the head. Allow to sense that hair of the head. Loma, hair of the body. Naka, nails, fingernails and toenails. Danta, teeth. Tacho, skin. And then tacho, skin. Danta, teeth. Naka, nails. Loma, hair of the body. Kesa, hair of the head. Kesa, hair of the head. Loma, hair of the body. Naka, nails. Danta, teeth. Tacho, skin. Tacho, skin. Danta, teeth. Naka, nails. Loma, hair of the body. Kesa, hair of the head. So that's how the body appears from the outside. And that's why it's taught to novices in particular to make some kind of opening into infatuation with the body as a sexual object, a beautiful object, which it also is, but it's not only that. It gives some balance. So that's a meditation on the body parts, and there is actually a list of 32 parts. That's just like, a shorter version. And then there's also the 3 body parts which we have been doing: bones, flesh, and skin. And just, noticing how the mind can settle a little bit if it has a simple object to attend to. So sensing into the body as a aliveness. An aliveness which is sustained by the planet, the food, the water, the oxygen, the temperature. All of that, working together and allowing these bodies to emerge and sustain themselves for a certain time, grow, age, get sick, die, compost back in. And the mystery of this seamlessness, which is absolutely awesome. And we can trust that. We can trust that intelligence, which is doing planet Earth since almost 5 billion years without us needing to control it. It's just happening. And that's what the Dharma is all about, is trying to support us to become participants of that seamless process. Do not get stuck in the vipalasa, in the distortions of perception, but to open our minds towards being more in attunement with reality the way it is. So that aliveness, that vitality, that vibrancy, which we can consciously experience if we attune to the body and its presence. And reflecting that all what makes up this body comes from the earth. These bodies are literally earth bodies. And there is a meditation instructions by the Buddha, which is called Descent into Emptiness, where the Buddha, works with that. And I can maybe try to guide you a little bit in that. It's the Chula Sunyata Sutta, the short discourse on emptiness. I think Majjhima Nikaya 121. And it's a little sequence. I try to share that with you right now. So, imagining that one has retreated to the forest from one's daily life, to just come into the forest in your imagination. So leaving behind, the complexity of village life or city life, of your workplace or whatever it is, and coming into the forest. And then, all of the details of the forest, allow them all to kind of sink into the earth, sink into the ground. Just seeing only earth. Like an abstract concept of only earth stretching out in front of us, all around us, earth. And the Buddha gives the image stretched like a stretched bull's hide with 100 pegs stretched out on the ground and being limitless in all directions. Just earth. Like a stretched bull hide with 100 pegs. So all details of the forest get lost in that stretched bull's hide with 100 pegs. Limitless. So it's all just earth. And even our own bodies, sink into that just earth. Everything on this planet has emerged just from earth. Earth, as a living being made out of earth element, water element, fire element, wind element, and space element. Just earth. And so with the in-breath, breathing in that vastness, that limitless earth, and with the out-breath, letting go into it, relaxing into it. The truth, that everything we have, we are, we can see, we can touch, is all earth element, is all made from earth and the other elements. There's nothing on this planet which hasn't emerged out of earth. And then, maybe bringing up the fact that there is so many people in leadership on this planet who don't have an appreciation for that truth. And the deep wish, may they be able to know truth. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. That's the classic sentence for karuna, compassion. May all beings are free from harm and the intention to harm. I'm breathing that in and then letting go into the vastness. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. And then, with the out-breath, allowing to radiate that compassion, karuna out in front of us without any pressure. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. And then to one side. Behind us. other side. And in front of us. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. Above and below, you're sitting in an orb of karuna, compassion. With the intention to use these bodies, to use this heart, to use these minds, to bring more sanity into the mix. And letting go of these old ways of looking at life as it's all about us. It simply is not true. And we need to add this fifth vipallasa. Seeing what is part of the web of life as separate from it is simply not true. And it gets more and more difficult to sustain it. It gets more and more brutal, more and more violent. So sensing into that karuna, compassion, the radiance, which comes from the heart, the chitta. And then, letting go of the karuna and just being aware of the boundless space, the limitless space. Having that as an object for the mind to rest into, to sense into. Or if it's helpful, we can also listen to the silence of that spaciousness and the aliveness. This is not a dead space, this is an aliveness. And it presents as a vibrancy or as a sound, sometimes a very high-pitched sound. And whenever the mind wanders off, into thinking about something, bring it back into the sensing, the listening. to being with. And that's, how that attunement happens, that refinement is by being with an object as subtle as that. The mind needs to refine itself to be able to stay with it. It's a stretch a little bit, but that's why it's a training. And then, letting go of the spaciousness or the space as an object, and just being aware of that which knows about the space, that which knows the silence. It's like a little U-turn. Just consciously knowing, being the knowing. And if your mind is a bit struggling with that, just allow the struggle. That's the training. It takes some time for the mind to connect in that way. Maybe. So being the knowing, or we can also call that refuge in Buddha, Bhutto, being awake. Knowing without an object, just subject, just the knowing. And if there's any remnant, of identification with the knowing, dropping that as well. No object, no subject, just knowing. Like the sky, limitless. Some clouds moving through, no need to hold on to those. Just knowing. And resting as that. So the mind, temporarily liberated from any identification, temporary liberation of the mind, or how my first teacher, Ajahn Buddhadasa, called it a little nibbana, a taste of the goal of the practice. Not clinging, the end of suffering. And maybe you can sense, the subtle joy, the subtle contentment which comes from a mind which doesn't cling, which is just in the flow. There's aliveness, there's a constant change. It's just allowed to be what it is, without any picking and choosing. And allowing that practice to weave us back into the web of life by experiencing ourselves in this way. And then, slowly in a few minutes we come to the end of the practice. So even the most sublime state of mind is impermanent. It always changes. So allowing that to sink in as well. And letting go of any grasping to the pleasure. Rather, engaging this truth in the way we show up in life. What we would call, mundane right view. How can I serve? How can I serve this process? While also practicing for what's called supermundane right view, which is liberation, the end of suffering, the stepping out of that cycle. But whilst we are part of it, we can serve this to go in a good direction. And in that way we build wisdom and compassion, the paramitas. And the feedback of the Dhamma is suitable circumstances for our practice to gain momentum. That's why the Dhamma is called Opanaiko, leading onwards. Because the Dhamma responds. just like nature responds. Nature responds to love, to kindness. To our intention to participate well. And sometimes it takes some time to really get the hang of it. Becoming a good relative, becoming a good ancestor, doing what we can to let go of this old paradigm of human supremacy, which is wreaking so much havoc. And I'm going to share the poem one more time. We look with uncertainty beyond the old choices for clear-cut answers to a softer, more permeable aliveness, which is every moment at the brink of death. For something new is being born in us, if we but let it. We stand at a new doorway, awaiting that which comes, daring to be human creatures, vulnerable to the beauty of existence, learning to love, and allowing that love to weave us back into the web of life for the benefit of all beings, including ourselves.